all of it, Iain. It was absolutely freaking back-breaking. I got nodules on my throat. I got shin splints. I was loading up. I've fallen off stages. I've thrown up on stages. Yeah, I've definitely lived the dream there.
What they don't see is the creativity, the business thinking, and the years of experience behind the programs that make those classes work.
I don't very often look on the downside of things, and that's been a bit of a mistake at times. I've changed in the last 6 months massively. Where I am now sitting in my business is not where I thought I'd be sitting in a year ago.
You've got to be positive. You've got to be willing to take constructive criticism. You've got to be willing to take criticism on all levels, because if you put yourself out there, you're going to get it. Whether you like it or not, you're going to get it.
And if there's one myth in the fitness industry that you wish people understood more, most people see the fitness class. What they don't see is the creativity, the business thinking, and the years of experience behind the programs that make those classes work. Fitness trends come and go. Aerobics, step, HIIT, Pilates, wellness. Every decade seems to bring something new. But today's guest just hasn't been watching those changes happen. She's been right in the middle of them, creating concepts, teaching fitness instructors, health instructors, and helping shape the group class fitness industry for nearly 4 decades. Welcome to the podcast, Rachel.
That's an amazing intro. Thank you, Iain. I'm honoured you've asked me. Looking forward to our conversation.
Brilliant. If we wind right back to the beginning, what brought you into the fitness industry? What was growing up like for you?
Well, I'm from a family of entrepreneurs. My dad had clubs, restaurants, which we were involved in. We worked in our family business, myself and my brother. And we both rode BMX bikes competitively. My brother still rides a BMX. I still have a BMX, still go to the local track with my son. But in the 80s, we were really into international racing. We were all over the country, all over the world. And I was looking for something to do in the winter time to keep fit. So we joined a local gym, which was very much a bodybuilding gym. Was all that was around. Leisure centres were around there. Such a different landscape there. This is 84. And there was a Keep Fit class going on. So I joined the Keep Fit class. Loved it. I'd always danced and been interested in drama and music. And it all came together. I just fell in love immediately in this whole group fitness vibe. I loved the people, the teachers, and I loved going. So I was weight training at the same time. I was training, and also I was going to what you used to call Keep Fit or pop mobility classes in the 80s. And that really was my love affair with group exercise from those very early days. I trained. I'd have decided that when I would leave school, I would set up my own business. So he had a function room, and I said, right, this is it. I'm gonna do Keep Fit. I'm gonna hire the function room. And my dad would tell all the locals that his daughter was doing a Keep Fit class, and they all came along. And I literally started doing aerobics in the function room of my dad's pub in about, I think that was about 86. I was about 16 at the time. There was no fitness industry. There was no qualification. It was just, this seemed like a good idea. And also from a commercial aspect, I was already adding up how many people were coming to the local class that I was going to. There were 50, 60 people. I think it must have been about £2 there, maybe £3. And I could quickly see that this was an opportunity to create an income all those years ago.
But sometimes it just takes, like you say, an opportunity, or I'm going to try this because you got the bug on something. And was it after that first class that you thought, I can probably make a career out of it? Or was the BMX still pulling you away?
No career. I mean, there was no career. There was no fitness industry. There was no pathway. There was no pathway. A little bit later on, probably 87, 88, there was a fledgling industry sort of just growing up here in the UK. And there was an organisation that was running out of Loughborough University. So I'm right on the Nottinghamshire-Derbyshire border. So I was very aware of what was going on at Loughborough. YMCA were in London. They were creating their course, and it was only running at the London Central at the time. But about 87, 88, they were starting to run that very, very early exercise to music, which had been developed from the RSA course that were sort of the predecessor to that. And they were running it in satellite locations around the UK. So they were in Lichfield, which again is not too far away from me. So I saw this in a magazine. I think it might have even been in Health and Fitness magazine. And I signed up to that course. And at the same time, Loughborough they were starting to do events. We'd got the Asset. There was a sort of a whole organisation called Asset. And I joined that organisation and I became a regional rep for Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire. And some of the contacts that I made then in those very early days, there were people like me around the country that were teaching fitness and aerobics in church hall, village halls, gyms, karate centres, anywhere, all over. I started to form a bit of a network. And so many of those people from those located, I'm still friends with and still do business with today, which is phenomenal. And got qualified, did the YMCA course, which I absolutely loved. I loved it so much. And then really that was it. I went full time into hiring space, working at a local leisure centre, driving around the county, delivering aerobics. And it pretty much was aerobics, 20-25 classes a week. And it was, it was all cash. I would take my little tin and I'd advertise it in the local papers. I was very cash rich at the time. And I would advertise, market. Because my dad had a pub and restaurants, he was really good with marketing, very ahead of his time. And he would advertise in all the local papers. Everyone had papers then. So I saw how, advantageous that could be. A 50 quid ad in the local paper would fill, classes, 50, 60 people would show up. And, those times, Iain, there was very little competition. There was not many other people doing that. There was a few people, maybe Nottingham and Derby, and a few around on the suburbs. But I think there was probably only me at that time that was teaching that many classes and travelling that far. And it was great. It was absolutely great. I was into music. We were mixing music and putting on cassettes. Yeah, it was a really fun time. I really enjoyed it. I met some great people. And at the same time, the fitness industry was just sort of blossoming. And I was a rep in Nottinghamshire. And there was events happening then. So I started to go along to all the local events and again, just network, make friends, find out what other people were doing in other areas. There was no internet. You look back and those early contacts really helped shape where I took my business and where our business is today, really. So yeah, that's such an important point, make friends with people, talk to people, find out what other people are doing and how they're doing it and ask questions and be curious. And then that has such a big impact on where you go and what you do going forward. And most people I find are very happy to tell you about what they're doing and how it's going. And I think if you're interested in people, that can really benefit you in business in the long run.
Yeah, definitely. And when you were sort of teaching those 20-25 classes a week, it sounds glamorous on the front end, but what were some of the perhaps least glamorous parts of the jobs that people probably don't expect?
It. All of it. It was absolutely freaking back-breaking. I got nodules on my throat. I got shin splints. I was loading up. I had a trailer. Back in the day, I had a Peugeot 205, and I had a trailer attached to it that would have, when Step launched, I would fill it with steps. I would drive like 10 miles down the M1. So I live just off junction 26. So I can just get into 26. I can be down to 25 in 20 minutes. I can be at the next town, hiring a venue, unloading all the steps, which was backbreaking in rain, sleet, snow. Oh my God, the whole work. I'd teach the class and then half an hour would get another to drive all the way down the motorway to Loughborough and do it all again in Loughborough and then drive again and do it somewhere else. I mean, it was backbreaking. Absolutely. I mean, that was proper graft. And, lugging systems and putting sound systems back in. And then when it was weights, I was carrying weights around and equipment. So yeah, that's the back rate. And sort of leisure centres and health clubs then were starting to appear. We got the Village Hotel opened at Chilwell and I started teaching classes there. So that was a bit more of a glamorous venue. It was nice. It was probably one of the first nice clubs in the area. It was quite coveted to work there and I was getting back-to-back classes. So that's probably when it sort of changed. But up until then, and for good 20-25, I was hiring church halls where the paint was peeling. They may have great sprung floors and great staging, and some of them are just phenomenal venues, phenomenal rooms. But they were church halls. There was nothing particularly glamorous about that. So yeah, I think people think the glamorous part, you put your headset on, you're out there, bit of a rock star. That's like that much of the job.
You've got to get people there, one. You've then got to get all the equipment there too, and then you've got to deliver a fantastic experience. So yeah, there's a few more layers to it than that. And it was hard. A lot of travel. You couldn't do that now. The roads are too busy. You could not drive, 10 miles in 25 minutes and set up and do another class. You just never get there anymore. So the days of that have gone. I think that instructor model went a long, long time ago. And of course, halls are really cheap. I was hiring halls for 10 quid, 7 quid, really, really cheap. I don't think that there's very little space around that you can hire for that kind of money now. I'm sure there is, but it's harder now to find those spaces.
Yeah. And you mentioned already earlier on, you remember your first class in the function room. Do you actually remember how that went? Were there any
Yes,
positive, or wish you never did it and really started something else again?
I really thought I'd arrived then. I remember when I had a pineapple leotard on, which like a wrestler leotard, and I had the leg warmers, and I had my music was all queued up, but the music, my dad had pushed all the chairs and the tables back, had this big space. And bear in mind, I knew everybody. It was all the locals, people that, prop the bar up most days. Yeah, and it just, as soon as I'd taught it, I was very nervous and didn't know how everyone was going to, if they were going to be able to do it, number one, and how it would go. But yeah, I loved it so much, and I just knew the potential from there. Although I was nervous, I really knew. I can remember the music, what I was wearing, who was in the class. I can remember all those things, all those years ago.
And is it nice having the people that you sort of knew already to make it slightly easier?
Yeah, I think so. Everybody there were people that drunk in the pub who, or worked in the pub that my dad knew, or people from the local area that I knew. So I did know everybody. Yeah, no, that didn't bother me at all. I think they were excited to be there as well. I mean, you just didn't go to aerobics on a Wednesday night. Those days, it just wasn't classes like that. It's just, it was kind of very different.
What stands out the most about the person you were back in those early days? Do you think they've sort of helped propel you forward to where you are today?
I think business-wise, my parents have always instilled in myself and my brother that, you take risks, calculated risks, and you have to push yourself, work for yourself always. My dad would always say, whatever you do, if you can work for yourself, then you can control your life and your destiny and your income and your lifestyle. And his mum had always instilled that when we were little. She had a business. So we were always going to go into business. And I've never been afraid of going in business and taking risks. I always think if you lose something or something doesn't go to plan, you can always make it again. It's always a learning curve. I'm not really afraid and I don't see anything as failure. I always look on the upside. I don't very often look on the downside of things, and that's been a bit of a mistake at times. I can always see a positive outcome from most things. So I think that's been a big part of my business journey is that I've just said, okay, I want to do this. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it today. Let's do it fast, and let's have a go with it.
Brilliant. And were there sort of moments like that you realised you were moving perhaps from just being an instructor into more of a creator entrepreneurial role?
I always saw myself as a business person. I mean, you never heard the word entrepreneur. That is kind of a new. My dad is an entrepreneur. I mean, he's 81 now. He was an entrepreneur, but we never said that. He just was a businessman, I suppose you would say. He was in business. Our family were in business. And so for me, it was as much as I loved it, it was always business as well. It was a lifelong, and it has been a lifelong passion. It's I think I'm running concurrently is this that I am running a business here. And that's always been the case. I've always felt that since the word go.
Yeah. And you've created lots of well-known concepts and fitness things like Fitness Pilates, Menofit, Walking Fit, BrainFit, KSFL. What was the process like when you were building those programs? Because obviously you've built them from scratch. You don't just go to, I don't know, a supermarket for fitness ideas and there you are, you have a plug and play thing to go. What was the sort of process around all of those things?
I think with anything in my business, it's looking where the white space is. What are the gaps? What aren't people currently doing? Or where are the demographic? Where's the market going? And not just looking at fitness, but just looking at culture, music, fashion, architecture, building, property, radio, technology, all of these things shape where culture is going, where our demographic is going. And I've always been really interested in that. So not just fitness, but looking at the landscape of, as we find ourselves in at any time, and trying not to be too tunnel vision into fitness, look at the wider audience. Where are people going? Where are they socializing? What are they buying? What food are they eating? Where are they going for recreation? Just sort of having a really broad look at what's going on in other sectors and other industries. And again, with the fitness, it's trying to work out where the hockey ball is going really, and thinking, okay, well, this is going on right now. This is really popular. That's great. You can stay with that and ride the wave, knowing as we do in fitness that things come in cycles. You can start to say, well, actually, it's all hit training at the moment. That's brilliant. Everybody wants hit training. So you know really that there's going to be, we're going to zag the other way, we're going to zig the other way, and we're going to probably look at something that's a lot softer. And here we are again with the Pilates boom. So I think it's looking at what's happening currently, knowing that you can ride that wave, you can be on that trend, but also looking at what's coming after, because there's always something else. There's always ups and downs in the fitness industry. If you look back over the last 40 years, we've constantly evolved, we've constantly gone up. It's gone from hard, intense, lighter, low impact, step. And you can actually chart the history. And I think if you look back over the history, you can kind of see roughly where the future might be going. And then it's to create something that, that there's a demand for. For me, it's always build the audience first. You can have the best product, you can have the best program. And again, I had a conversation with somebody just a couple of weeks ago at an event who said, I wrote this course and it's a great course. And I know that this person will have wrote a brilliant course. The first thing I said to her was, well, how are you going to market it? Who's going to buy it? How are you going to sell it? And I think so many people create fantastic programs, products, courses, but they actually don't have an audience, or they don't create an audience, or they don't build the community first. Almost that you need to do that first before you launch anything. Otherwise, it's extremely expensive to launch something. You've got to pay to launch something. You've got to pay for your audience. You've got to pay time. Whereas if you're building a community, you're taking people along with you, you have an easier chance then when you're ready to launch a new program, class, or anything.
And dare I say, you probably got a hint of that from your father being a good businessman. He probably wouldn't just change the menu completely. He would still have your sort of regular meals and go, would you like to try this type of thing? And you'll go, well, okay, that hasn't really worked, this cuisine this week. Let me try something else. And you slowly add more repertoire or more options to your restaurant list, or whatever it's called, menu. There we go, menu. And I suppose you say doing the same with the fitness is get the audience there. And then you can
Yeah.
say, well, actually, out of 100 people, these people are probably not going to enjoy the high intensity, but they might have 5 other friends that want the lower slightly intensity, like you say, the Pilates boom. But if you only focus on talking to those, you're going to alienate that, which is what you were saying with the wider audience and sort of that wider everyday scope, isn't it?
Yeah. You've got to build a platform. You've got to build your personal brand. We know now that people generally buy from people. We know that. You look at brands like Richard Branson and Virgin. I haven't looked at his stats for a long time, but I would imagine Richard Branson himself will have millions more followers than the Virgin brand. Virgin's the brand, but Richard is the personal brand. So we're buying into Richard. We think if Virgin's on the phone, if Virgin's on the air, then it's going to be good quality. It's going to be high quality. So it is about the personal brand. And I think even more so than ever before, we are buying into the person, the founder, the instructor, the teacher, the program creator. But we need to take our audience with us and say, look, I'm creating this. Come and watch me create it. Let's do it together. And which I've done with all the brands is, this is the idea. Okay, I've had an idea for Fitness Pilates. We've seen all these different Pilates brands 23 years ago. And I think there's a space in that for a fitness inspired Pilates that takes all of the principles, but we deliver it in a classical group X manner. So it has music, it has a warm up, mobility, main exercises. Let me do some workshops and see what you guys think. And I toured it around the country. I get feedback from people. Actually, yeah, this is working. People are really liking it. Okay, we can then iterate, and then we can relaunch it and get more people involved and get more feedback. And we can keep doing that. We keep iterating on making it better, improving it, listening to feedback, getting somebody in the Orkney Islands and somebody in Plymouth to teach it to their communities. Is there a difference? Is it location based? Does it work better in a city than a suburb? And then I can change it, I can modify it, and then keep improving the product all the time.
Yeah, wow. And talking of Virgin Active and talking of projects, you worked on something with Nova with them? Is
Did a
that
few projects with
talkable
them. Yeah.
or?
I did a few, yeah. I did a few in South Africa. Again, myself and my colleague, good friend Jane Nichols, Jane was doing a freestyle fitness yoga, and I was doing Pilates. And Virgin Active had, at the time, this is when Mind Body wasn't as big as it is. Many of the studios had got, many of the gyms had got 3 studios, and the cardio studios were busy all the time. And the Mind Body studios were probably, they may have 1 yoga class in a day, or they may have a yoga class in the evening. They just didn't, it was very different then. And they needed a gateway program that would bring the cardio people in, that at the time people were either mind body, they were either yoga and Pilates people or they were cardio people. They didn't seem to be at that time. People weren't doing lots of different things. They weren't doing yoga on a Monday, HIIT on a Tuesday, gym on a Wednesday. They were almost like sub members within the group. So they were looking for a gateway program that was kind of it replicated a cardio style class, but it had all the elements of yoga and Pilates, which was a great brief to have. We'd created a program called Nova. Before that, it was called Unite. And we've been playing around with this idea because we'd also seen that there was a need for that. We've got leg mills and body balance, and body balance was doing that to a degree. And so we created a program called Unite, which we ran around the country and was really successful. And then Virgin Active came to us and said, look, this is the sort of program that we want to run throughout our gyms. And literally they bought the program from us. And we traveled around both the UK and South Africa, and we trained all of their instructors to then deliver Nova. And that's what Nova did. Nova became the gateway product for people to come from the cardio, try Nova, really like it. And then the idea was then they would maybe go to the yoga class or the Pilates class. And that was a great experience, really good experience. And that was a really good lesson. Interesting working for a corporate like Virgin, where some great people worked at Virgin at the time. So again, it's all connections. It's people that you've met along the way, people that you know. And yeah, that was a really interesting project that ran for a good few years.
And what was it like seeing something that you've created with your friend, but being taught by what, thousands or hundreds of instructors, and probably being presented to thousands of everyday people? What was that like around the world for you?
Oh gosh, Iain, if I said this to you now, I think that's great. And you're just moving on to the next thing. It's like, great, that's amazing. It's like, right, we've got that. What's next?
Tick
Where
off,
do we
which
get?
is what you were saying earlier on with get it in, get it out, get it tested, bang, get it delivered, and then get on to the next trend and build your audience along the way. Go on.
I think now you said that, yeah, I probably should have just had a minute after that and had a bit of a think. But you just create it so far in the future. You're delivering that same product for maybe a year, 2 years. You've already checked out of it. You've not checked out of it, but you're already thinking about the next thing. I'll be already creating the next thing while I'm delivering that one. So as soon as that one finishes, you're ready for the next one. You're moving it forward.
Bit like the Olympic rings or the Venn diagram.
Yeah.
One move, the other one closes, and then you're off onto the next. But you're like, yeah, I deliver that, but I'm just starting this. And after that, maybe this probably isn't the ideal question, but did you, after that moment, did it change how you saw yourself and your role within the industry? Or were you already building momentum to sort of influence and provide a structure for fitness instructors?
Yeah, I think as well, we were invited, chosen, picked to do that job with Virgin because we were well known, and we were already around the UK delivering courses and workshops all the time. So on a lot of those workshops, 50% of the people we would know, they were already coming to us. So and a lot of new people, a lot of new instructors who were coming into the industry and going to work at Virgin who we didn't know. So it was a real mix. But yeah, I mean, before that, I'd already toured the UK with Fit Pro. I'd done loads of fit camp events at Bognor Regis and Fitness Fiesta, all these huge events that used to get thousands of people. So I'd built a community and knew a lot of people in the industry anyway. It was interesting to work with corporate, and it is always interesting to work with corporate. And I think even more at that time, Virgin Active was very, and I don't know because I've not worked for the company for a long time, but they were very go ahead. They were very maverick, like Richard. They were like Richard Branson personified, really. They were doing new things, they were breaking new ground, and they really were in the fitness industry. They were the health club operator to be with because they were doing new things. They hadn't signed up with Les Mills, or a few of them had. So they were all championing freestyle. And yeah, it was a really exciting time to be with Virgin Active at the time. And I think that corporate, is interesting. You have your certain parameters. You have to work a certain way. You have to deliver in a certain manner. Can be, that can kind of put some boundaries at times. And someone like me that just goes for it and, it's sometimes quite hard to, it's got to be delivered in this sort of way. So as much as I've loved those gigs over the years, and I've had all sorts of different ones, I've worked with Fitness First and Mel B, I delivered a program with her, delivered many. I do, honestly, I'm really happy when I'm doing my own thing and doing my own and pushing forward with what I'm doing and without any rules, any constraints, I can just go where I want to go. So I am happier in that environment.
Being not a free spirit, but being able to chart your destiny, I suppose, isn't it? And going, I'm going to hedge my bets on that's where it's going to go, and I'm going to reinvent myself to that. And as we've already just alluded to, that platforms change, trends come and go in the fitness industry, technology evolves. Has there been moments where you've sort of started to reinvent yourself professionally to stay ahead, but there's been a curveball and you've had to sort of change tack quite aggressively?
Yeah, lots of time. I mean, really recently, I've changed in the last 6 months massively. Where I am now, sitting in my business, is not where I thought I'd be sitting in a year ago. And I'm sure we'll talk about that future. I mean, in the fitness industry, there's been lots and lots of things have happened that have changed. Obviously, the internet was huge. I'm very interested in the internet in the late 90s. I had a CompuServe account, AOL, on dial-up. I was just, at the time, I was sending out thousands of flyers that were costing $5,000 to reach all these instructors by snail mail. As soon as the internet came around, I thought, gosh, we can email people for free. This is wild. Get me on board. I got a friend who was making websites. She made me a website, and I was just like, yeah, this is going to be it. This is the thing that's going to be make me a millionaire, Rodney. This is going to be the thing. I created a website, and I was already selling videos and VHS, and I was packing them all up here, going to the post office, and we were filming. People needed ideas, so I knew that the internet was going to change everything. I didn't know how it was going to change anything, but I knew I needed to get on board with that. So I did. I made websites, and I created my choreography to go business, which is 25 years ago, however long it was. And I knew that the future would be streaming and downloading in relation to content. So that was a major pivot. I was just a bit early with that. It was good because I was early, but the industry wasn't coming with me. Everybody wasn't on CompuServe. People didn't have an AOL account, and it took quite a long time for people to catch up. And it was dial-up, so dialing up videos took ages, and the quality was crap. It was all grainy, but it did move quickly. But I was able, again, to build up a big database of people, send out a regular newsletter. I always knew from my dad's day that you need to build that community, and you communicate with the community, whether it's with a typewritten newsletter that you send out in the post, or whether it's a weekly newsletter that you email now. I always knew that was the foundation of the business. So yeah, they were big changes. And of course, obviously the pandemic was one of the biggest curveballs that we've ever seen. And that was a very, very interesting time, stressful time. But again, it was because I was already online, and I was already streaming, live streaming. I got all that set up. It was not a problem for me to just switch it, dial it all up. And we were doing courses more or less every day, workshops every day. I was helping instructors get online. I built a big business group of people that needed help to keep their business going. So I helped all those instructors get online, start with their music, using Facebook, social media. So many of them had never really, they got lovely local businesses and they were doing really well. They've not really gone online, still had, and we're doing brilliantly well. And I've been telling everybody in the fitness industry, you need to get online, you need to get online. Of course, the pandemic just accelerated all that. Yeah, we were already doing qualifications online. And to be honest, we were frowned upon. The fitness industry were like, you need to get into a classroom. You can't do level 3 Pilates online. That's not right. And of course, come the pandemic, everybody was doing it online. The whole industry really switched. But I think we've seen a big switch again in the last 6 months.
And if we go slightly lighter note for the time being, after thousands of class workshops and events, there must be some absolute chaotic moments. Can you remember a couple of funny moments or unexpected things that might have happened during your teaching or presenting days that won't get you in trouble?
A lot we get in trouble. I mean, we grew up in this industry, so in the 90s we were partying hard, teaching, and all those holiday camps. We were out partying and then teaching the next day. I mean, I've fallen off stages, I've thrown up on stages. Yeah, I've definitely lived the dream there. And I think the sheer amount of work, we would book a gig in Edinburgh on the Saturday and London on the Sunday to drive from Edinburgh all the way down to London and deliver a 4-hour workshop. I mean, wild time, up and down the motorway. The traveling was the hardest. Just, there was almost like two sort of separate businesses. I got education here presenting, but that was a weekend gig. And I was still teaching all the classes, 20 odd, 25 classes a week here locally. So keep spinning those plates. That was really hard. That was a real graft. And there was years I didn't go on holiday, I missed, friends' birthdays, weddings, anniversaries, all the things because just had to keep those two plates spinning. Probably didn't really at the time looking back, but you did. You kept it all going. It was competitive. Both, it was getting more competitive locally, more people were popping up, loads more presenters, loads more people were doing education. That was very, very competitive and still is very competitive. So, they were two things that I had to keep going. That was hard, really hard. But yeah, it's what it is. It's not, I'm not down a mine. I'm not, I'm not working in a factory. That's graft. I get to meet nice people like you every day. Every day I wake up excited about what we can do today.
And what's one side of the industry that people from the outside never really see? I know you've alluded to traveling up and down, the perhaps late nights with a Diet Coke or lemonade.
I think people just don't, I think the general public just don't realize, and why would they? Why would they realize how much work it takes somebody to put well together presentation or workshop or just class? You're going to a class at 6 o'clock on a Wednesday. It doesn't matter what it is. Zumba, club-a-side, Fitness Pilates, reform, it doesn't matter. The person that's delivering that class has put in some serious hours on training, education. They've spent some serious money on creating that experience for you. People don't just pop up and deliver a great class. There's a lot of time and energy and expertise that go into that 1 hour. But why would the general public know that? Why would you know that? That's part of the magic, isn't it? But it is, there's a lot of work. This is a very hard industry. You have really got to love it. You've got to be really passionate about it. You've got to really keep inventing yourself, keep pushing forward. You've got to be up on social media and marketing. Not at any chance now can you just appear and teach a class. There's so much more behind it that people don't realize.
And I think even when you look at teaching or presenting or even podcasting, the people that make it look easy is only sort of the
Yeah.
tip of the iceberg. There is so much more behind it. There's learning to project your voice, because you might talk normally in a one-to-one session, but if you've got to get to 50 people whilst keeping in time with the music, whilst not sounding like you're about to die, and clearly give instructions, it's quite a lot of plates spinning at once. And probably antisocial hours as well, that you're up at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning to teach, but you're still teaching at 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night. And like you say, M1 up north and then back down south on weekends. It's a lot that people don't see either, is it?
But it is a lot, yeah. And it is a lot of work. It really is. But it's a great industry to be in. There's some fantastic people. You meet loads of great people, and there is a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of opportunities, and even more so now, I think, than there's ever been before. You can go in so many different directions, and I think we were in at the beginning, and it's still early days. 40 years in, the industry itself is in its infancy, and it's still evolving. So I think there's a long way to go yet.
And if we move into sort of the modern day now, so what you're currently doing now, obviously you mentioned you've got your education business and your presenting side, you've got CBD courses, you've then got training programs, and you obviously, do you still teach a few classes yourself as well?
Well, I didn't. It's so interesting. So after the pandemic, everything we did was online, obviously. And I was still teaching at David Lloyd and Virgin Active. And I kept those classes on, but we were doing more and more education, more and more digital education, and we were writing more and more courses, level 2, level 3, level 4 courses, and the demand was high. During the pandemic, demand was really high, and it continued on. And I really didn't think that I would be going back to teaching locally. And say going back to, I don't mean going back to, but I didn't think that that was an option. I didn't want to hire halls again. I didn't want to work in space. I was sort of over the health club scene. Um, and I'd kind of plateaued really with the operators, and where the operators were going. So I'd kind of resigned myself to really running events. So it would be digital education, but we would run regular events. Now, whether they were monthly events or quarterly events, but it was still hard after pandemic to get people to come to things. 3 years after, and it was still, well, why would anybody want to jump in the car on a Saturday afternoon and go and do a workshop? You can do it online on a Wednesday afternoon. I can be multitasking. I can get all that information. And I get that. And we put quite a lot of events on, and they were okay. And, people were coming, but the general vibe was, okay, I might go to one event a year. I might go to the Blackwall convention, but that's it. I'm happy. I'm staying in my little local area. But I think I felt a massive change about last summer. I felt that people wanted to get together. They wanted to be in a room. They were prepared to travel. They wanted to network. I think we were over Zoom. We were fed up with digital. Slowly but surely, I was putting on smaller little class events, master class. More and more people were coming, more and more people were traveling. I think we saw last summer, we saw Oasis go on tour. So there was a huge throwback to the 90s. Everyone was thinking about, Don't Look Back in Anger and seeing everyone in the stadiums, and it was just giving people that sort of retro 90s vibe. So I started doing some retro master classes, aerobic step, and people were coming back, and they were coming back. More and more people were coming back on a monthly basis, just 1 hour. I did some work with Chambliss and did some retreats with Chambliss. They were coming, more and more people coming to those. It was just apparent that people wanted to get away from the screen and they wanted to come together. And I think from almost like a light switch from the 1st of January, more and more people want face to face. So we were teaching reformer Pilates online. And we were going into reformer education. We were doing more and more reformer education. And I was going to run all the reformer education at a local studio. But we soon realized as soon as the studios open, they're rammed. They are busy from morning till night. Reformer studios are opening up everywhere. So there was no chance to hire a studio and do education because they couldn't warrant it. They needed it. So I've got the space here at home. So I set up the studio here where I've done all my filming. I got 8 reformers, and we started doing the education here. I mean, if you'd have told me that we were doing running courses here, people would come to Derbyshire, spend the day, uh, I would have said, no way, that's not going to happen. But I mean, we're running 2 courses a week, and that's got me to do a couple of classes locally. They've all sold out. So I ended up now teaching 5 reformer classes, Pilates classes here. I've just invested in a new app to book people on. I'm already sort of planning more events outdoors, just locally again. The wheel turns full circle. And I think it's now easier to get people to come to a physical location than it now is to get people to do stuff online. So it's almost that we've gone full circle.
But like you say at the very beginning, it's about being not necessarily on trend, but seeing where the
Yeah.
trend is going to go and never saying never,
Yeah,
or
never,
looking at the
never.
silver side of the cloud, isn't it?
Yeah. I think the future is the integration of both. I think that people want to be with people. There's no shadow of a doubt. They want to be in a room. I've noticed people want small group. They want to be in a group of 5 or 6 like-minded people where my workshops have changed, where I would stand up and lecture. It's almost a collaboration. I might be the person delivering the information, delivering the topic, but everyone's chipping in, everyone's standing up, everyone's got a point, and we want to hear everyone's stories. We're not, the whole vibe has changed, and people want to contribute. Back in the day when I'd be delivering the workshops, people would be like this. Wouldn't, they'd be closed at times. They'd be thinking, "Oh, what does she know?" Or lots of people would be very open, but you always get that. Now people are coming to share, to take part, to get involved, to share their perspective, and that's part of the whole education. Now, we go round, we talk, everyone has an opinion about things, and it's such a different landscape now. At one time, the workshop would close at 4. People would be, getting the coats on, leaving at 3:30. You can't get rid of people now. Everybody wants to stay. And I think, yeah, we've seen that shift now where everybody wants to be together. And I think people want to be together in really nice spaces, whether it's a home studio. And before, I'd have thought home studio, who wants to come to a home studio? But actually, I can make that experience so special, the right music, the right ambience, the right vibe, the right coffee. I can make it really lovely for everybody that comes. Yeah, I definitely think that we are seeing that change, which is exciting.
So if we go to a lighter note after all of that, after 40 years almost in the industry, do you still enjoy teaching classes today, or does it feel completely different to what you first started with?
I still love it. I love teaching. I love sharing, educating, teaching fitness. Yeah, there's something very magical about group exercise. It's a very rewarding thing to do. And it's very fun and enjoyable. And yeah, every day I still really enjoy teaching. I'm glad I don't have to teach 25 classes a week and work at the weekend for sure. I mean, I still teach a fair few because I teach online. I've got an online membership. So I do teach online and I do teach face to face. Yeah. And I can't imagine never teaching. Can't imagine that will ever happen.
It's quite a buzz, like almost an addiction almost to a degree, isn't it? And how has your relationship with fitness changed over the years, do you think?
Gosh, I mean, in the 80s and the 90s, it was all hardcore training, high impact, unless I was sweating and working really hard, I wouldn't think it was working. Now have a much softer approach. Pilates, I like to walk. I used to run. I don't run anymore. Yeah, much softer now than it was. I just enjoy movement, stretching. I enjoy mobility work.
Let's move into a little bit more of a reflective mood now. What do you think separates the people who build a long-term sort of career in the fitness industry or in the health industry than ones that perhaps come and go and burn out just after a few years?
Consistency. I think it's a long-term play. Maybe people come into the industry thinking they're going to, either do really well, make lots of money, and then they realize that there is so much more to it and it's a lot harder than maybe you originally think. So it's definitely consistency. And I think it's understanding that you've got to you are your product. So you've got to do a lot of marketing, whatever part of the fitness industry, unless you're working for an operator. If you have your own business in any capacity, then you've got to market that business and you've got to sell your services, whether it's you or whether it's your brand. And that takes a lot of time and energy. And that's constantly changing. If you're using social media, the algorithms are changing, the platforms are changing, the style of content is changing almost on a daily basis. So you've got to have an interest in that, and you've got to have an interest in marketing and promoting what you're doing. And I think many instructors maybe underestimate the amount of marketing and promotion that it takes to bring any kind of class, product, service to the marketplace. Even if it's in a local area, there's a consistent amount of marketing that it takes. And I think people do underestimate that. And if they do leave the industry, it's often because of that. And because of that, they don't make the money that they want to make. And so it becomes really difficult and unsustainable.
And I suppose it's finding that if you've come from, say, a corporate life into self-employed life, there is, I like to call it, the write the theme tune, sing the theme tune, and perform a theme tune. You've got to have all elements of those. You can't just go, oh, I want to perform, but if you haven't really gone out and told people that you are going to perform, there's going to be nobody in the church hall turning up. Or
Yeah.
you go guns blazing, tell everybody that you're going to be there, but you haven't had time to practice it, so they don't come back with your awful singer.
No, that's it.
And
I think people don't do the market research sometimes. They think, "Oh, well, Tuesday at 2 o'clock, that's gonna work. There's nobody in this area is doing Tuesday at 2 o'clock. I'll make it work." But there's usually a reason why nobody's doing Tuesday at 2 o'clock. There's just not the footfall, and everybody in that area is not available at Tuesday at 2 o'clock. There's something else going on. So I think people they don't do their market research enough, whether it's a class or opening a studio or opening a gym. They're all very competitive verticals now, and you've got to know what you're dealing with and who your market is and how you're going to be speaking to them and how you're going to be reaching them. And I think people don't do enough of that.
if there's one myth in the fitness industry that you wish people understood more,
Oh my gosh.
or one that they can just disappear either, they're often easier than, well, they misunderstand this one.
I think that's it. We've covered it. The misunderstanding is that just you standing on stage or you teaching a class is the tip of the iceberg. It's that much. It's all the underneath work that you have to do to get there, to get to that point, to have that audience, to teach to those people. That takes a lot. There's a lot of steps before you get to that point.
And what does success look like for you now compared to earlier in your career with what you thought success might be?
I think success is time, is having more time to do things, more time to spend on projects, than maybe in the past when, I'd probably be launching things a lot faster. I take a little bit more time these days, not that much less, but a bit more time. Not really. I am motivated by finance, but I really like the journey. I really enjoy setting up a new project, and I really enjoy going through those stages. I really enjoy doing the research, spotting the idea, and then mapping out how I'm going to bring that idea or how I'm going to bring that project to life. What does that look like? I really enjoy that, and I actually quite enjoy it when it doesn't go to plan. Trying to figure out how you can make it work or how you can make it happen. I really enjoy doing that as well.
Yeah. And what mindset, we might have covered this a little bit more, but what mindset do you think someone needs if they want to build a long term career in the fitness industry like yourself?
You've got to be positive. You've got to be willing to take constructive criticism. You've got to be willing to take criticism on all levels, because if you put yourself out there, you're going to get it. Whether you like it or not, you're going to get it. And I think you've got to take feedback on board. You can't Everybody tells you, "Ian, you're amazing. Your podcast is fantastic." You kind of just got to nod and go, "Yeah." You've got to tread the middle of it, because if people are saying, "Yeah, you're amazing," you kind of believe it. But if people are saying it's absolutely terrible as well, you kind of don't need to believe that either. So you've got to be in the middle. I think you've got to take both ends of the spectrum the same way, is my
Smile politely and go, thank you very much.
so
Either go and cry in the corner or just celebrate quietly in the corner, one or the other.
yeah,
And I think
100%.
probably would also help with emotional energy as well. I think you hear a lot of sports people go, "Oh, I'm emotionally tired after that event." So they're physically trained, mentally trained, but actually the emotion of perhaps the crowd cheering them on, or in your case, so many hundreds of people doing your course that you created 12 months ago that you're now launching somewhere else, there is that stopping the highs and the lows as much. So the high feedback of, oh, wow, you're amazing. But the next thing you
Yeah.
produce might miss the market and everybody goes, gosh, she's fallen from grace. How's she
Yeah.
made? She did that product and this one is absolutely naff. But you've then got to reiterate and go, okay, thank you. I'll take that on board and do version 2, version 3, version 4.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to do that, and you have to be, yeah, because people will say, "Oh, you're amazing." You can't really believe that your own height. You've got to just stay the path through the middle.
Yeah, which is hard. Rachel, from those early days teaching aerobics classes in the function room to building programs, educating instructors around the world, it's been brilliant hearing your story and your journey behind that story. And thank you so much for sharing it with us today and being a guest on 360 Life Stories.
Thank you, Ian. It's been a pleasure.